Perhaps you're doing everything right in your own eyes, and yet there's never enough money left over. This leads to fatigue, frustration, and even spiritual questioning. But the Bible reveals that financial growth isn't just about how much you earn, but about how you think, decide, and manage what you receive. There are biblical habits that transform mindsets and build sustainable prosperity. In this video, you'll discover 5 biblical habits to boost your financial growth, so stay until the end because the last habit is the most important. Like and subscribe to the channel. Habit 1. The steward mentality, not the owner mentality. In today's world, we are taught from an early age to repeat the phrase, "The money is mine, I work for it, I do what I want." This logic seems fair, rational, and even motivating. But spiritually, it carries an invisible weight. When someone sees themselves as the absolute owner, every expense becomes an impulse, every loss becomes despair, and every financial threat generates fear. Money begins to control emotions, decisions, and even relationships. The Bible presents a completely different view. It teaches that everything belongs to God and that humankind occupies the role of administrator. A butler is not someone who owns, but someone who takes care, organizes, plans, and renders accounts. This change in perspective completely transforms the relationship with money. The butler understands that resources have a purpose, that choices have consequences, and that nothing is random. In practice, this directly impacts daily life. When you see yourself as a steward, you begin to question before spending, evaluate before taking on debt, and start to view financial planning as something spiritual, not bureaucratic. The budget ceases to be a prison and becomes a tool for freedom. Discipline stops being a sacrifice and becomes an act of faithfulness. Many people ask for prosperity but reject the process of stewardship. They want a raise but don't organize what they already receive. They want growth but treat money carelessly. The steward mentality confronts this silently destructive behavior. It teaches that there is no sustainable prosperity without consistent responsibility. In the context of business and career, this habit also changes everything. The professional who sees themselves as a steward works with greater excellence because they understand that their talent is not just a tool for personal gain, but a resource entrusted to them. This affects deadlines, ethics, quality, and posture. The entrepreneur begins to make less emotional and more strategic decisions because they know that managing well today is preparing the ground for tomorrow. And I want to know from you, if you believe that your financial life will prosper based on these biblical principles, write Amen in the comments. Habit 2. Discipline and consistency before results. We live in a generation conditioned to haste. Quick results, immediate gains, instant solutions. This mentality creates frustration because biblical logic operates differently. Scripture values the process, faithfulness in small things, and continuous commitment. Those who don't understand this end up abandoning correct practices simply because they haven't worked in the time they expected. In the financial field, this is extremely common. People start to get organized, create a budget for a few weeks, control their spending for a month, and then stop. Not because they don't believe in it, but because they haven't yet seen significant results. Discipline is interrupted before it bears fruit. Consistency is replaced by the emotion of the moment, and the cycle of instability begins again. The Bible teaches that growth happens like a seed. First comes planting, then care, time, patience, only then the harvest. There is no solid prosperity without this invisible interval between effort and reward. Financial discipline, when practiced consistently, begins to align decisions, shape habits, and strengthen self-control. But this requires perseverance even when no one is watching, when the numbers are still small, and when the temptation to give up appears. This habit confronts a dangerous illusion, the idea that discipline is temporary. Many believe they can be disciplined only until life gets better. But biblically, discipline is not a phase, it's a lifestyle. It prepares you not only to receive more, but to support whatever comes. Without consistency, any growth becomes fragile. Daily excellence, ethics maintained even under pressure, the repetition of good practices when no one is watching. All of this builds an invisible foundation that, over time, becomes visible. Disciplined people may advance more slowly at first, but they advance steadily. They don't skip steps, they don't rely on shortcuts, and they don't abandon values for quick results. Habit 3. Wisdom in financial decision-making. The Bible never glorified hasty decisions. On the contrary, it values counsel, prudence, and reflection before action. In the current context, this becomes even more necessary. We live surrounded by tempting offers, promises of quick gains, unmissable investments, and shortcuts that seem to solve everything at once. The lack of wisdom lies not only in making mistakes, but in to act without discernment, without evaluating the consequences, without considering the long term. Decisions are made every day, even those that seem small. To accept or reject a debt. To enter into a partnership or not. To spend now or wait. To invest based on emotion or strategy. Every choice carries a future impact, and biblical wisdom teaches us to look beyond the present moment. It doesn't ignore opportunities, but tests intentions. It doesn't reject growth, but questions how it is achieved. A common mistake is confusing faith with recklessness. Many people make risky decisions and say they are trusting in God, when in reality they are simply ignoring basic principles of wisdom. Biblical faith never excludes common sense. On the contrary, it goes hand in hand with responsibility. God does not honor choices made without reflection simply because someone quoted a promise. Financial wisdom begins with the ability to pause. Pause before deciding. Pause before signing. Pause before committing. In a fast-paced world, pausing has become an act of spiritual maturity. Those who always act in haste tend to repeat mistakes. Those who learn to wait generally choose better. There is also a deep emotional aspect to financial decisions. Fear, greed, comparison, and anxiety are dangerous advisors. Many wrong choices stem from the desperation to get out of a difficult situation quickly. Others arise from the pressure to appear successful in the eyes of others. Biblical wisdom teaches us to decide from peace, not urgency. It protects the heart before protecting the wallet. When this habit is neglected, a person may even grow financially for a while, but this growth becomes unstable. A single ill-considered decision can compromise years of discipline and consistency. On the other hand, when wisdom governs choices, even mistakes become learning experiences, and even losses transform into protection. If this content resonates with you and makes sense so far, please like and subscribe to the channel. This greatly helps the channel continue bringing messages that combine faith, wisdom, and financial growth. Habit 4. Work with purpose and excellence. Many people see work only as a means of survival. Something endured during the week to live on weekends. This mentality generates discouragement, mediocrity, and, over time, stagnation. The Bible, however, presents a much higher vision: work as an expression of character, service, and spiritual responsibility. Working well is not just a market requirement, it's an internal reflection of who you have become. When purpose is absent, excellence also disappears. The person does only the bare minimum, delivers the basics, constantly complains, and expects recognition without contributing value. This behavior not only affects their career, but also blocks financial growth. Biblical prosperity is not sustained by carelessness, improvisation, or negligence. It flourishes where there is commitment, zeal, and consistency. Working with purpose means understanding that your profession, your business, or your current role is not random. Even if you're not yet where you'd like to be, something is being built within you right now. The Bible teaches that those who are faithful in little things become fit for much. And this faithfulness manifests itself in how you keep to schedules, solve problems, treat people, and deliver results, especially when no one is watching. Excellence in this context is not perfectionism. It's intention. It's doing the best you can with the resources available. It's refusing to live on autopilot. People who cultivate this habit stand out not because they try to show off, but because they consistently deliver value. Over time, this attitude generates trust, opens doors, and creates opportunities that don't arise for those who merely react to circumstances. Habit 5. Generosity as a principle of multiplication. In common understanding, generosity is often seen as a loss. Giving seems to diminish. Helping seems to delay. Contributing seems risky, especially when there are still personal goals to be achieved. But the Bible presents a different logic. It teaches that withholding out of fear impoverishes the soul and limits the flow, while giving wisely broadens horizons, breaks cycles of scarcity, and creates paths where none existed before. Generosity, biblically speaking, is neither an emotional impulse nor financial irresponsibility. It's not about giving what you don't have, nor about ignoring planning. It's about heart posture. It is the conscious decision not to allow money to take the place of security, identity, or power. When someone becomes generous, they are declaring, in practice, that they trust God more than the resources they manage. This habit directly confronts the scarcity mindset. Many people live in constant fear of lack. Even when they earn more, they remain trapped in anxiety. The Bible shows that this fear is not resolved through hoarding, but through trust. Generosity breaks this cycle because it teaches that provision comes not only from what is hoarded, but from what is shared with purpose. In everyday life, this principle manifests itself in various ways. Helping someone at the right time, contributing to something bigger than yourself, investing time, resources, or knowledge to uplift others. When generosity becomes a habit, money ceases to be merely a means of consumption and becomes an instrument of impact. This completely changes the relationship with success. Generous people build strong relationships, create environments of trust, and strengthen networks that endure over time. The Bible teaches that those who sow liberally will reap abundantly, not only financially, but in opportunities, partnerships, and consistent growth. The return doesn't always come from where you expect it, but it almost always does. A common mistake is treating generosity as something that can only exist when there's plenty left over. The Bible, however, shows that it is an active principle, not a side effect of abundance. Waiting for plenty to be generous usually means never starting. Generosity teaches us to align priorities, to put order in our hearts, and to trust that God honors those who act with faithfulness and balance. When this habit is incorporated, something powerful happens internally. Anxiety decreases. Excessive attachment weakens. Comparison loses its meaning. The person begins to see money as a tool, not an end in itself. And this generates a lightness that no amount of money alone can produce. Throughout this video, you realize that financial growth, according to the Bible, is not about haste, luck, or shortcuts, but about alignment. Alignment of mindset, habits, decisions, and purpose. When these principles are practiced daily, money ceases to be a constant problem and becomes a tool to build a more balanced, stable, and meaningful life. True prosperity begins from within, is formed when you manage well, persevere in the process, decide wisely, work with excellence, and live generously. These habits not only transform your finances, but also strengthen your faith and spiritual maturity. If this content resonated with you, don't let it go unnoticed. Leave a like to support the channel and subscribe now to continue receiving messages that combine faith, wisdom, and financial growth.